One of the biggest questions I've been getting recently over the past few months, but also longer than that, the last year plus, is where'd all the inventory go and when is it going to come back? Well, in today's video, I want to dive even deeper than normal on what everybody is collectively calling the lock-in effect. And all that is, in short, is a lot of people have a low mortgage rate, they don't want to get rid of it and buy at a higher one. So let's dive in and I want to show you not just the history, but when I think that will change. Before I bring up all the statistics and the charts, I want to go over a few quickies for you. So 91% of all homeowners in the United States have under a 5% mortgage, and about 70% of all homeowners have less than a 4% mortgage rate. So with rates currently sitting right around 7%, that is not an appealing number to buy at if you are one of those 90 or 70% who have something potentially down even in the twos. I have a ton of clients who bought with a jumbo loan, who got a 2.5, 2.75 mortgage rate, and they're sitting pretty. And the more people who I talk to, the fewer are interested in selling potentially ever, at least until rates come back down to what they used to be. Let's dive in and start with what exactly has happened in history with mortgage rates so we can see what other periods have happened where we've seen such a steep increase. And then we want to look at what happened with the inventory as well as pricing during those timeframes. So this first chart, as it says here, is the history of the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. And here we are all the way in the 2022-2023 timeframe where we're sitting around 7%. We obviously were down in the twos, right? So we're looking at a 4 to 4.5 percent increase over just a 3-year period, 2.5 to 3-year period. So looking back, you can see that we haven't had anything that substantial in terms of increase in a very long time. The first one that jumped out to me that was potentially close was back here in 1993, going from about 6.75 up to 9.25, worst case scenario. So we're still not even there yet with how steep the increase has been here. We have to go all the way back to the 1970s, early 1980s. We had this ridiculous jump. This is well before I was born, but basically we went from 8, 9% all the way up to a peak of 18%. Now, that was very short-lived, right? We have these two big spikes here. This one followed by a pretty big crash down back to 12. We have this one where we were at 18 in October of 1981 before we were all the way back down at 12 just 2 years later. So what happened during this time frame? Again, I like to look at this from an analytical, logical standpoint and see what data exists to try to forecast what's going to happen in our current and in our soon-to-be future. So the next thing we want to look at is, all right, between 1977 and 1983, give or take, when things started coming back down, even if we go to 85, right, in this big period where it got way more expensive to buy a home, you would think, logically, if it was more expensive to borrow money, you would think that would have put some price pressure and brought things down. But here we are, and we have nothing but it essentially slowly straight line up. There was no pressure here. And it's a little bit similar to what we're seeing in Ocean City. Now, these are national, right? I don't have statistics for all this stuff going back to the 70s for Ocean City. I wish I did. So we're going to have to use a little context here. For example, we can't say, all right, well, look, prices have come down from Q4 to Q1. That hasn't happened in Ocean City. In the country, on the whole, in the aggregate, it has, which is why we have to bring things to a local context. But the short version is, when things were worse, when there was a steeper increase than we are living through now, prices did not come down. And if we were to look at the Ocean City graphs as to what's happening, things haven't come down either. Single families are essentially flat, a little bit of moderation, but nothing has come down. Condos are still increasing. So in history, there's nothing that I can point to say, hey, look, we've seen what has happened. We can expect the opposite, right? Nothing happened then, nothing's happening now. So the next question really becomes, how can we quantify the lock-in effect, right? How long were these people stuck with homes for? Let's say we had a buyer who bought back in the mid-70s at 7, 8, 9%, right? They really would have been stuck in a home until things came back down for about a decade, right? Until we get to the mid-80s. So things tend to jump up quickly, come down slowly. That's what we can see here in history. Besides this one pretty steep drop here, this has generally gone down. This is the first time we've seen an increase again in a few decades. So this took 10 years. to clear up. Now, unfortunately, the one thing that we can't go back and see, and I really wish we had this, but this is the best data source that I've found to look at housing data on a national level. They don't have inventory data back beyond really 2016, which is really, really not that helpful. We could see here again, we're about half of what we were historically. It's what we're seeing on the island as well. So we can't look back in the 80s and 70s and say, hey, well, inventory crashed, right? And we can say, hey, look, that's what's happening now. That makes sense. Unfortunately, we can't go that deep. But what I can tell you is from a common sense standpoint, right? Most people who own here, nothing is a need. This is all want-based. This is a want-based market. It's a luxury market for that reason. There are very few people who I think are willing to make that decision or that jump to go from a low mortgage rate to a high one. It seems likely we're going to see another rate increase, the Fed in their next meeting. Beyond that, nobody really knows. But it's safe to say that we shouldn't expect this quick reversal, right? Where all of a sudden, a lot of buyers who I'm talking to and sellers who want to be buyers are on the sideline waiting for that rate to come down to make the move make financial sense. I don't think that's likely to come for another year or two plus. And when it does, that will, yes, bring us more supply, but it will also by default bring us more demand. So what's going to change the big math here? What's going to change the equation for so many of you who want to buy here, but it's financially painful to do so? I don't have a good answer for you. I don't have a magic pill. What I've been talking through with buyers who are successfully still buying homes here is that this is a long-term game. If you've spoken to me at any point over the past 3.5 to 4 years, that's been my entire spiel is I don't care what the market is doing, right? Whether it's a good time to buy based on what's going on in the market is irrelevant. It's what's happening with you. Now, to make that decision, we do have to look at the big picture and the big context. And that context, more than ever, has become, if you're going to buy here, it needs to be a longer term decision than it may have been in the past, right? My dad, when he did this, claimed Ocean City was a stepping stone community. And I know that's a term that still gets used a lot with agents here, that you just have to plant your flag. You got to get your foot onto the island, and then you can make your next move a few years down the road. And again, after that. But again, I know I am a broken record, but that is an expensive thing to do, to move multiple times. The closing costs and potential tax consequences of doing so are pretty steep. So doing this right the first time, I've had one buyer, which I believe I mentioned on last week's video too, who was actually happy with the price that they paid. Every buyer who I've worked with has been thrilled that they purchased when they did, but only one was happy and excited about the price point they were paying from the jump. Everybody else is feeling what you are feeling in that it's hard. It's a tough decision to make. It's a tough pill to swallow because it's expensive to be here. So again, please do not take that as me telling you, you better get off the fence and go quickly, because if you don't, you're going to miss out. That's not what I'm saying at all. You just need to look at the data, which is what I'm bringing to you on a very frequent basis. So if you're not subscribed to this channel already, I highly recommend you do so. And do me a favor and hit that like button while you're at it, because this is a passion of mine, as I'm sure you can tell, is telling not just the truth, but packaging the stories and anecdotes of what I'm seeing on a daily basis, the stories and conversations and questions I'm discussing with potential buyers and sellers, and bring them to you to add context to what the data is saying. So again, the data alone can be misconstrued. It can be misleading based on what's happening boots on the ground. But I really enjoy bringing those nuggets to you as well, because it not only helps me feel more comfortable, right, about the story that I'm telling and the accuracy of the data of what I'm seeing, but I know that it helps people not feel so alone in this, or not feel like it is this impossibility because others have done it. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to be sitting down with some past clients of mine who have bought recently and talking through the pitfalls and the stressors and everything that they went through to get to where they are, to share that experience with you, because I really do think that's going to be valuable in helping with some people's mind frames and mindsets as they think about this process, because getting to Ocean City is a goal for hundreds, thousands of people. Very few actually do it. And I am very intrigued, right, into really being able to point and show you what the difference is between the people who have made the move and the people who haven't. And I know it's easy to say, well, it's the people with a boatload of money, right, who don't care how much it costs. But I think some of these stories will surprise you. These aren't people who are walking around with $1 million in their pocket, right? They are average middle-class, hardworking families who have saved, who have budgeted and planned accordingly. So hopefully you're going to find all this that's going to be becoming valuable. Obviously, I'm going to still keep doing a lot of market updates because things are changing pretty rapidly. We're down to about 220 homes on the market now, and we were at 250 not that long ago. So we're heading in the wrong direction if you're a buyer, the right direction if you are a seller. So if you want to talk about any of that stuff, again, please do not hesitate to reach out. All my contact info is down in the description. Always happy to be a sounding board for you. So thanks for hanging out with me as always, and I will see you next time.